What's up, Womack Nostalgia? Dave here with a review of GNX, Kendrick Lamar's sixth album. This was surprise dropped in the middle of the afternoon Eastern time today. Not expected. We did expect that a Kendrick album was in the making, coming soon, nebulously, but certainly was not expecting it today. Of course, Kendrick Lamar's last album, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, came out over 2 years ago in 2022, and that was an album that got a lot of critical and commercial success, but also perhaps not the most beloved Kendrick Lamar album due to the pretty consistently thorny material in the song and kind of lack of hits compared to past Kendrick albums. Of course, this has not been a year without Kendrick Lamar. There was certainly expectation that Kendrick did have a new album coming soon because, of course, he was announced to be headlining the Super Bowl next year. And, of course, that was coming on the heels of Kendrick's 2024 thus far. We have had a lot of Kendrick this year. Of course, his beef with Drake absolutely going nuclear earlier this year, culminating in Not Like Us becoming one of the biggest rap songs in several years. It's approaching 1 billion streams on Spotify. The beef is well trodden territory at this point. I have a different video talking about the Drake Kendrick beef. We're not going to rehash that here. I will be talking about Not Like Us again pretty soon when it comes to making my top 10 songs of 2024 list, so come back for that. That being said, Kendrick gave us a new album, and Kendrick is an album artist, as we know. So whenever you get a full body of work from Kenny, you expect a lot because his body of work, needs no introduction at this point. I did a Kendrick Lamar albums ranking in the past, so my previous thoughts on all the other albums is well established. Here we are now at GNX, which is also the first album release from Kendrick that is not associated with Top Dog Entertainment or Aftermath. Of course, Kendrick now out on his own with PG Lang and his new deal with Interscope. Kendrick Lamar's sixth album, GNX, is a significantly more accessible record than his last album, Mr. Morale. I don't think this album has nearly as much depth and richness in storytelling as his last album did, but what it might be lacking in personal candor and like really detailed introspection in terms of the high bar we associate with Kendrick Lamar, GNX more than makes up for that with just a lot of hits. This album is very much coming in the lineage of the success of Not Like Us. Production is incredibly Los Angeles. The bounce is all over the place. Also, some hyphy Bay Area influence here. It's very West Coast, it's very LA. And Kendrick talks about his homage and love for his home on the album. This is also Kendrick's album of kind of putting his hands up in the air and calling on any would-be adversary at this point, given how triumphantly he slayed Drake earlier this year. It makes a lot of sense, but I really appreciated his candor on the very first song, talking about the response to him getting the Super Bowl next year. Kendrick is not afraid to take on the haters, and that's very clear on this album. Production-wise, I think the album is honestly pretty slight, but that doesn't mean that beats are bad. I think these are just kind of subtle beats, often only a few flourishes, but a lot of these flourishes, these beats really rock. The first song, Whacked Out Murals, I thought was really amazing, self-reflection from Kendrick. You have this like distorted choir starting the song, then these horns kick in when Kendrick starts rapping, and then the song almost like repicks itself back up, and Kendrick starts rapping with even more of his chest. This is where you get the Lil Wayne line, which I thought was like an instant classic from him, honestly. I used to bump the Carter 3. I held my rolly chain proud. Irony, I think my hard work let Lil Wayne down. Bars, man, that's so good. And honestly, I don't think I really talked about this to this point, but like the really strange response to Kendrick getting the Super Bowl, as if the regional location of the Super Bowl means Lil Wayne should have gotten it, as if Lil Wayne is on that level as a performer ever, let alone right now, was always hilarious to me. And I'm happy that he talked about it. This is great. He keeps going on the song, though. Got the Super Bowl, and Nas the only one congratulate me. All these dudes agitated. I'm just glad it's on their faces. And again, Kendrick openly will call out the haters and flex, because he deserves a flex at this point. I appreciate it from him. Track 2, though, is incredibly exciting because this is Squabble Up. This song already had a long life as a snippet, coming out of the end of the Drake Kendrick beef. And then people were, wondering, would this song exist? Let's look back on Kendrick's All Right music video featuring a snippet that never ended up seeing the light of day as a full song. I was not confident that the song that is now known as Squabble Up would exist in its full form, but the fact that it does is awesome. And the fact that this song is actually even better in its full form than its snippet is great. That's not always the case when it comes to a viral snippet. But Squabble Up, I mean, the West Coast bounce, man, like this is it to a T. The song is just a bop. I mean, I love the call and response section. I think it's just a complete banger. Like, I think this is very much, again, sonically similar to Not Like Us, but it makes sense because that is a really hot sound right now, thanks to Kendrick's success. From there, we immediately slow down with track 3, Luther, which features SZA. You kind of get like melodic Kenny, not my favorite mode of his, but he's really, I think, over the years, ever since like Damn, really honed this craft and this side of him. So it's not my favorite, cup of tea when it comes to his performance styles and his deliveries, but he is pretty good at it these days. And of course, SZA, always a welcome presence. Track 4, Man at the Garden. This one's interesting because like the production is so slender. It's just these subtle drums, really, and then you have almost like a shortness of breath, dominating the flow from Kendrick, and it's kind of interesting, I suppose, because of the subject matter, the storytelling he's doing, talking about his family. I like the way the song swells and you get these like doubled vocals. I love the way it ends basically with that very passionate like line from Kendrick, "Tell me why you deserve to be the greatest of all time, motherfucker." Like, goddamn. Again, Kendrick, uh, not afraid to toot his own horn, but again, he's earned it. Track 5, Hey Now, produced by DJ Mustard. This song is a interesting one because it's a lot subtler than we expect from DJ Mustard these days. You have this almost like jungle, like forest vibe, but with the drums and the bass then eventually like bounces back. Kendrick gives you this very aggressive flow. The beat kind of evolves from there, giving you like these chimes as well. And then we get the first of several kind of non-star features. This one from Dodie Six, who is a South Central LA rapper who's currently incarcerated. There's a handful of rappers of a similar fame level on this album. I just love that from Kendrick, right? Because it's a great example of him actually practicing what he preaches and putting on other people from his home, a home that he professed a lot of love for, of course, in the past. That fueled a lot of his anger and vitriol towards Drake this year already. But he talks about his love for LA and all of LA specifically, Compton, South Central, etc. That's all throughout this album, lyrically, and he's kind of practicing what he preaches by putting on these people who are not stars, right? It takes a lot less work to put like YG on this album than it does to take guys who aren't that famous, and he does that a handful of times. I think it's really cool, and also I thought Dodie Six was great. I thought it was an awesome feature. He fit the song perfectly. I should know at this point that every single song on this album is co-produced by Jack Antonoff. I never expected this. I mean, we talk about Jack Antonoff all the time in terms of his work primarily with female pop singers of various, shapes and sizes. And to have Soundwave and Jack Antonoff be the two big producers on this, I just didn't see it coming. I don't really have even much to add on his contributions because it's so hard to discern. And Kendrick works with so many people. Kamasi Washington also involved on this album. DJ Dahi. It's just Terrence Martin. Like, these are familiar faces for Kendrick albums, but maybe this album being slighter, production wise, not being super super in depth. Maybe that's the Jack influence. You kind of think of like his effect on Taylor Swift in terms of making these more monochrome ambient beats. Like, I don't know, it's just a guess. I have no idea, but it stands out for sure. His contributions on the credit list. Track 6, Reincarnated. This song is crazy. This is Kendrick invoking Tupac with his flow and doing it incredibly well. And it's not just the flow, it's also like the vocal ticks, it's the tone of voice. And he's not the first person to do this. Of course, The Game famously did this, but it's pretty sick. And it's also great, very timely, of course. Kendrick calling out Drake for basically dancing on Pac's grave in a certain sense during the beef. Of course, Drake infamously, I should say, using AI Tupac on one of his songs that didn't completely land. And now you have such artistry from Kendrick, in this case, using this homage to Tupac to then communicate this song about drug abuse and conversations with family and stuff. Like it's just a completely unique song, very Kendrick Lamar. This is a song that's I think very at home on other Kendrick albums in terms of its depth, in terms of its storytelling ability, but also its re-listenability. Really impressive. And then to follow that off, we have TV Off, track 7. I think between Reincarnated, TV Off, and Squabble Up, you have like three like canon entries from Kendrick. He always seems to give us one or two, right? TV Off, also Mustard co-produced. This beat is sick. Um, it's like the LA bounce, but with like violins on it. Like it just sounds incredible, complete banger. And then this beat's very involved. The switch up, the horns showing up, and the horn is going crazy at the end with like, the bass hits. Uh, Kendrick rapping his ass off throughout the song. This one's a huge highlight. Then again, we slow it down with track 8, Dodger Blue, which is like an LA love letter type song. Lyrically, more of a slighter flow. You got some sung features. Roddy Ricch is on here. Song's just okay. It's probably my least favorite song on the album. We bounce back though with track 9, Peekaboo, which the LA bounce is here once again. A faster flow from Kendrick. The hook's a little grating to me, but I enjoyed Ashiki, one of the features. I thought he was floating, really holding his own, going bar for bar with Kendrick. It was quite impressive. Again, another example of Kendrick putting someone on or giving a big platform to someone anyway. And then we have the Hard Part 6. Of course, Drake attempted to release the Hard Part 6 during the beef. That was not a song he officially released, of course. And I love that Kendrick didn't call this Hard Part 7. He just pretends that doesn't even exist and made his own Hard Part 6. And unsurprisingly, this is a better version. This is a better song. Of course, the Hard series at this point is very storied in the Kendrick Lamar lore. If you know, you know. And this one is one of my favorite Heart songs because this is Kendrick's like storytelling about his come up specifically around the rise and his early part in Top Dog Entertainment and the Black Hippie as a result. You know, talking about early on, it was all about making J Rock happen. Kendrick, of course, famously started out as J Rock's hype man, right? He talks about Schoolboy Q and Absol and Dave Free and Punch, right? Like in Soundwave. Like uh, I think it's a tremendous piece of storytelling and a great moment for fans such as myself who were really into all of Black Hippie, in that 2010s period when they were like a real collective at that time, a real supergroup, so to speak. Makes you long for a different time. And Kendrick admits on this song that Black Hippie didn't work out because of him, because of his own ambitions changing and whatnot. I mean, I love to hear that kind of self admission, so to speak, from him. And of course, we know they're cool. The Black Hippie guys all showed up at Kendrick's The Pop Out concert earlier this summer, which was that big LA love fest that Kendrick and friends all performed at the Forum, I believe it was, or the Intuit Dome, wherever it was, right? So we know they're all cool, but I love this like almost bit of closure you get from this song, even if no one was necessarily asking, it's like, what's up with Kendrick and Black Hippie? We weren't. It's still cool. Then from there we have the two last songs. You have GNX, which has a bunch of other smaller faces such as Peso. I think that song's fine. And then the last song, Gloria, second feature from SZA, and kind of similar to like Kendrick's rapping on Miss Morale a lot because he talks about meeting his wife and like the early days of their relationship and things like that. And I don't think Kendrick gets as soul bearing on this album as he did on Mr. Morale. Mr. Morale, Kendrick was not afraid. In fact, he was choosing to expose things about himself, things that people might not like. And that's what I think makes that album so admirable, is that he's not afraid to show you his warts and tell you why he might be a bad guy in certain respects and certain things. And, speaking about his family life and his beliefs and things like that. And that's just, kind of in contrast with the fact that that might not be the most fun album to revisit per se, but it's one of his most ambitious from a storytelling perspective. I don't think we're really at that level with GNX. This is kind of similar to like Damn in terms of being a little bit more populist leaning, right? A little bit more in the hit department and not a full body of work like from a storytelling perspective. Obviously, Good Kid, To Pimp a Butterfly, we're not in that stratosphere with this. But I think that's also fine because this album really feels like the the final grace note, the stamp, the exclamation point on the 2024 he had, where he triumphed over Drake by releasing a hit song, something that was Drake's MO, not Kendrick's, right? I think to some people, they might not be impressed enough with the production on this. They might think this is rushed in a certain respect. I don't know how you could really feel that way just because Kendrick as a rapper is still so damn capable. His floor is so high. And he sheds a lot of, I think, like legitimate like gripes and comments about things, and it's all very recent, right? Again, Little Wayne stuff, the Black Hippie stuff, a lot of addendum and conclusion things regarding what happened with Drake, namely the Tupac homage, right? Um, I think all that works, like, and it works well, and it's Kendrick freaking Lamar, so like, it's not ever bad. I do think it's an album I will revisit because a lot of these songs are very fun and enjoyable. Um, whether this stands the test of time in his discography, of course, this is the first day it came out. Hard to say that yet, but I think I like it more than Untitled and Mastered. I'll tell you that. But let me know. I know that's a controversial take. My right placement of Untitled and Mastered in the rankings did not go over well. But let me know. What did you think of Kendrick Lamar's GNX? Obviously, the surprise is a big factor of this, but what did you think of it? Like, are you happy with the kind of combination of hits and legitimate like lyrical commentary that he gives you on this? Like, is it like the happy medium in a certain sense? Do you agree with that? Let me know. And for more rap reviews, more music reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.